Hello everyone, good day to all of you, and I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to give a review today talking about the CAT ODB 718 762 suppressor. I've had it for a few months now, picked this up originally in early January, so March right now, and just overall a really remarkable suppressor across the board actually on everything that I've tested on. And for the sake of brevity, I'll just put up a list. If you want to read through it, just pause the video. But going all the way from 545 up to, of course, this 762 by 51. Now, interestingly, this suppressor is optimized by CAT to be used on a 762 by 39 AK. That was not a platform, unfortunately, that I was able to test it on. However, I did try to. I have a Wasser 1063, but put on a face mount muzzle device and just went to double check the concentricity, and it was so far off, even with a face mount, like I said. So wasn't able to test that, unfortunately. I'll probably pick up another 762 AK in the future where I'll hopefully be able to suppress it. We'll see as time goes on. But regardless, I do think this will still be a very good review because I have tested on tons of different barrel lengths, different operating systems and everything. And that 545 I mentioned earlier, of course, that was an AK. So I did get some testing on the AK platform with the suppressor, just not 762 AKs. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the most important point that pretty much everyone does look at first on a suppressor, as far as the tone. How quiet does it actually get? So Q Science actually did a very good review on the CAT ODB already. So if you want the quantitative numbers, I would highly recommend checking them out. Usual caveat I always put at the start of all my suppressor videos, of course, is I don't have that sort of really expensive, really fancy equipment to do actual quantitative testing. So this will purely be a qualitative review. But with that said, I have 3 total suppressors, including this one, and this is by far the quietest on every single platform, which is really remarkable because I do have CAT's WB, which is their 556, more so compact suppressor, and even on 556s, this ODB outperforms it noticeably so at the ear and even for other shooters. So how I tested this, I have pretty much 2 almost identically set up rifles, at least as far as the important internals are concerned. So I have a 416 and a MR 556. Both are kind of a hodgepodge of MR parts and 416 parts. But point is, they both have a 16.5-inch barrel, and of course, they're both exact same type of piston setup. And of course, on one, I put the CAT ODB right here, and on the other, I put the CAT WB. Interestingly, on that footage, right off the bat, of course, it may not be too obvious which one is quieter, but if you listen to the footage of the rifle I had with the CAT ODB on it, notice that it actually sounds a bit more mechanical compared to with the WB, which just sounded like a quieter gunshot. The WB is certainly effective, but of course, like I said, the ODB is certainly more effective, and you can actually pick that up in the footage because you can actually hear more of the mechanical sounds of the rifle itself. So really impressive that the microphone is no longer getting peaked by the gunshot sound, and you can actually just barely start to pick up on everything else going on. Of course, with that being said, it is a 556, and similarly, this is a 308, all supersonic cartridges, so none of these are hearing safe. And similarly, on every other platform that I tested this ODB on, it was quieter. So all the way down to a 10.3-inch barrel, this just outperformed the WB. And that's not to rag on the WB because that is by far still my favorite 556 suppressor, just because of the overall length profile, and weight and everything, which is a point I'm going to get to later on this CAT ODB as well. But first, let's go ahead and touch on the flash performance, which of course is a very important point as well with a suppressor. So understand, first of all, that CAT makes 2 versions of their ODB. They make 2 versions of pretty much all their suppressors, a titanium version and a Inconel 718 version. This is the ODB 718, so that means it is a lot heavier, but it doesn't have the issue that a lot of titanium suppressors have with sparking. And the issue with sparking, of course, is it can cause a lot of issues with your nods, and particularly with, for example, my SIG suppressor, which had an ungodly amount of spark up because that one is titanium, though it's more so on the extreme side. I will say, from the footage I've seen, even the CAT ODB titanium version doesn't seem as bad, but any amount of sparking will cause an issue with your night vision. It will damage the tubes over time. Having something that doesn't flash as bad is what I look for. So on that, I'm gonna play the flash footage now. For the test, I did it with this 762 by 51 308 MR 762, so 16.5-inch barrel. I'm gonna let you see how that did right now. So as you can see, pretty expected first round pop, not really that big of an issue either. Pretty comparable to the CAT WB in that regard, but as you saw in those subsequent shots, there's just really nothing. And for reference, that footage was recorded just about approximately 30 minutes after sunset, so just right before the range where I go to closes. Another of the big features of this suppressor, of course, is that it is a low back pressure, reduced back pressure type of suppressor. So this is set up in CAT's usual fashion, as with most of their other suppressors, where you have the four kind of the vents on the side, which get that excess gas blasted off rather than going back through the system and increasing the back pressure, and it works great. So naturally, of course, this would have less back pressure on the 5.56s and the 5.45 that I mentioned earlier, simply just due to the fact that it's a 30 cal, so it's overboard. Now for comparison, the other 7.62 suppressor I had on here before, the SLH 7.62 from SIG, that one actually, even though it's also supposed to be reduced back pressure or low back pressure, I was still getting about, if I remember correctly, about a 130 ejection pattern. Compared to with this, I'm getting usually about 2 o'clock or 2:30-ish ejection with the same ammo, of course, so it is a lot more effective at actually reducing the back pressure compared to others that claim to. And furthermore, with every single rifle that I've tested this on, I don't get any gas to my face, I don't smell any gas even, which is actually an issue, again, even with that SIG suppressor that claimed to be reduced back pressure. I mean, it certainly was reduced, but you would still occasionally get gas to the face, and especially if you're rapid firing, or just if the atmospheric conditions were just right or just wrong, if you want to say it that way, then I could really smell the gas sometimes and get occasionally gassed out on this. But again, with this ODB, it has not been an issue across the board. With any muzzle device or suppressor I get, I do always check the point of impact shift, and also just if it had any negative impact on the group sizes, because some muzzle devices can. Haven't ran into that personally with my suppressors, but point is, this doesn't have any negative impact on the mechanical accuracy or precision of the rifle, and I'm kind of carefully wording that because one issue I have ran into with this, on this rifle especially, is that it heats up a lot. I've noticed that with CAT's, the WB suppressor as well. They heat up really quickly and they stay hot for quite a while. So shooting a 10-round group, usually around round 5, 6, I will usually get enough mirage to where I can no longer get a consistent point of aim on the bullseye. And like I said, on that POI shift, it's very predictable, just I think 1 or 2 MOA down on this rifle. Of course, the exact amount of shift you'll see will really depend more so on your exact rifle and especially on your barrel profile. So for instance, on that AK, I saw significantly more POI shift, but point is, it is directly down, so no weird stuff with the windage or anything like that, which is what you want, just a very predictable shift. So let's finally get to the physical characteristics of the suppressor, the can itself. So starting on the external finish, one complaint I did have with my CAT WB, and that I saw a few other commenters were mentioning as well, is that the finish on that one wasn't great. It did wear off pretty easily. And this CAT ODB's finish actually looks really similar, and on camera it's so fine of a difference you may not be able to really tell it compared to the CAT WB, but actually it seems to be a lot more durable. I'm not sure if it's maybe luck of the draw, maybe this one's finish just turned out better, or maybe since I did get my WB quite a while ago at this point, maybe CAT themselves have improved their finishing process now. But yeah, the wear is significantly less compared to how much wear I had on the WB around this same amount of time and round count. Next up, on the length, this is just a little bit over 7 inches. Now, CAT actually does make 2 versions of their ODB, and most of their other suppressors, in fact, probably all of them, they make a hub version, which this one is because I'm already invested in the Plan B ecosystem, and they also make a proprietary version for their 16x1 spooky left-hand thread. The hub version is ever so slightly shorter, but of course, when you actually add an adapter, in my case, I put an Atlas R Revival Defense titanium version onto here, it ends up pretty much the exact same length compared to either or. And just as a side note, since I did just mention that, I have not ran into any issues with sparking, even though I am using a titanium adapter right here. Really, the only places that cause an issue with sparking is anywhere that's prone to or subject to blast erosion from the muzzle blast. A titanium muzzle brake, for instance, if you use that, you'll see sparking. A titanium blast baffle or a titanium suppressor just in general, you'll see sparking, but yeah, something back here is all good, no problems there. And last up, on the weight of this suppressor. So Silencer Shop, if I'm remembering correctly, they currently have this listed as being 16 ounces for the in-canal version, which is completely wrong. Thankfully, if you actually look at CAT's site, they list the correct weight as the mill core version, which is kind of a heavier duty core, which I'm not sure if that's the only one they offer now, but I weighed this and mine weighs right there, exactly on with the mill core weight. So it's a pretty heavy suppressor at just about 20 ounces. And then of course, plus a little bit for that adapter. So it's a lot on the end of the muzzle there. Compared to their titanium version, that one is actually, allegedly anyway, extremely lightweight. I think CAT's site states that their titanium one is 10 ounces, which for a 7.62 suppressor like this is kind of remarkable. If you're looking for weight, like I said, the titanium definitely has a lot of downsides as far as night shooting, but if you just care about weight, maybe for just a hunting suppressor, then that really probably is an excellent option. Overall, I would highly recommend the ODB. It's been an excellent suppressor. Specifically, looking at the in-canal version, the only real big issue I do see with it, of course, is its pretty high weight. Personally, I think that the weight trade-off is totally acceptable for the amount of performance that you get out of it. Pretty much anytime you're increasing performance, you do see an increase in weight, so I think it's fine in that regard, but of course, if you don't, then they always do have the titanium version as well. The other thing about this, of course, is it is a pretty expensive suppressor. The hub version is about 1.3K at the moment, and that's excluding the tax stamp. Their spooky version is, I think, about $50 more, but if you factor in the cost of an Atlas, for instance, they're, again, going to end up about the same price either way. But overall, this ODB is just a remarkable suppressor. I've been extremely happy with it so far. I am going to keep using it on the 7.62, even though, like I said, it is across the board a better performer, even on my 5.56s. I just don't think that the added length, especially on my 5.56s, for example, my 10.3, I like to keep that pretty compact, so I'm just going to keep using the WB on that. That is by no means a bad suppressor, but you know, it's kind of a use case thing. If you want that shorter length, then the WB is better for 5.56s. But as far as the sound suppression and just the overall performance, this ODB is just really good. So thank you all for watching, especially if you made it through the whole video. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any other questions or comments, by all means, feel free to leave those. And any actual questions, I'll always do my best to try to get back to you with an actual answer. And other than that, thank you all for watching. Take care. I hope to see you all in the next one. See you then.